everybody, and welcome back to the Consummate Athlete Podcast. I'm Molly Herford, and when I'm not writing about bikes or fitness or nutrition or all that fun stuff, I'm probably trying to do one of those things. Probably outside, as the weather's been pretty good this past week.
And I'm Peter Glassford. I'm a registered kinesiologist and endurance coach.
So, what have we been up to this week?
I don't know what I really have done. It's gone by quickly. It's been a lot of coaching and a lot of sessions with people on bikes, trying to get people faster. Good, nice mix of stuff, downhilling and cross country, and then some road the other day, and then cyclocross, and then tonight's a big cyclocross clinic.
I think my favorite was actually, we got to ride with two little shred girls on Thursday at our Collingwood Off-Road Cycling weekly mountain bike ride. We had a, I think, 7-year-old and 9-year-old that we shredded with, and I was pretty impressed, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, they're really good.
So that was my highlight of the week. I've also, for those in the Collingwood area, I'm actually getting back to teaching yoga starting in September at Active Life, so kind of coming up with that schedule and starting to, flesh out some new flows and some plans, and I have a workshop coming up at the end of September that I'm excited about. And of course, I'm starting the sort of taper for the fact that in under 2 weeks, I'm going to be racing that 50K that I can't seem to stop talking about.
And you're going to prepare while being at a cyclocross camp.
That's right. Yeah, I hear cyclocross is really good prep for mountain running. I don't know who said that, but it was definitely someone very smart.
Right.
I was telling an editor yesterday on the phone, I was excited about the 50K run because I got to, last week's episode featuring Born to Run author Chris McDougall got me stoked about it, and then I actually interviewed him again yesterday for a piece over on Gear Junkie that I'm working on with some of his favorite stuff, and told the editor, I was like, yeah, I was really nervous about the 50K, but then I talked to Chris McDougall, and by the end of it, I was like excited and wondering why there wasn't like a longer option. So any and all things that go wrong during that 50K, I'm just going to blame him. Also, if we end up owning a donkey. If you haven't listened to last week's episode, you really should. It's awesome.
It was a good one. I actually just was listening to it.
Really? You re-listen to our episodes?
Well, it's like continuous improvement. I like to see where I can improve.
Any notes for me?
No, that one was good. I didn't speak a lot in that one, so it was good.
That's great.
Yeah.
You actually don't speak at all in today's interview because it's one that I did solo while we were in upstate New York. It's with two awesome women, both of whom are ambassadors for World Bicycle Relief, which is an organization that I'm really excited to kind of introduce to anyone that hasn't heard of them before. They do this really great thing where they provide bikes to children, both girls and boys in developing countries, and that helps kids actually access school and be able to have kind of these more normal lives, and they're doing such cool work. They also build schools, so really cool stuff. Anyway, these two women actually ended up using the BC Bike Race, which is a pretty cool 7-day stage race, as a fundraiser. So Renee, Lockey, and Claire Gieger teamed up to do the BC Bike Race, and over 7 days, tackled, I believe it's 312 kilometers of single track. It's a pretty crazy event, really gnarly trails in BC, and they crushed it as the women's open team duo. I'm not sure what the exact phrase is. They won their category. They had a great time, and what I really like about their story is both of them came from different sports. Renee was a racquetball player, Claire rode crew and did Ironman, and then they both kind of shifted into cycling and found mountain biking. But they also both hold down full-time jobs during the week, so we got to kind of talk about what training for a 7-day stage race looks like when you are a full-time office worker, or in Renee's case, she's a gynecologist, so we get to talk a little bit about saddle sores, which you guys know is my favorite topic. So it's a really fun conversation. I'm super stoked on it. It made me want to do the BC Bike Race.
Must be compelling then.
Yeah, that's saying a lot. I actually really am much more into like these running 7-day races that we talked about, or you and I have talked about. But you've done the mountain biking stage races. You've done what, Trans Rockies and Transylvanian Epic?
Yeah. Crank the Shield.
Oh, right. Crank the Shield.
Which is coming up here again, the new revised 3-day stage race in Ontario. This one's even further north in Ontario.
I ran most of that the first year I was with you and you did it.
This is true.
That was fun. It was really cold. But I'm sure it'll be beautiful this year. It's in a really gorgeous area.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. But yeah, the stage races are really, it's basically like going to summer camp. It's really good experience. I don't know. If you haven't done any sort of stage racing, especially mountain bike stage racing, it's just so laid back that it's
but I think what's been interesting about everyone I've talked to that does BC bike race, whether they're pros or, you know, normal people with normal jobs, is the nice thing about being in a stage race is it really forces you kind of out of all of the stuff that's going on in your head and in your outside life. Like for the week, whether you are a pro or you're, you know, just a normal person, you are a bike racer for that week. Like, your job is to race, and by the time you get done with the stage and you've recovered and showered and eaten, it's time for dinner. Then you're going to bed in your tent because you're tired and you're, you know, trying to get ready for the next day. So you actually have this very meditative experience of being kind of outside of your normal life for a week.
Yeah, it's sort of like summer camp, right? Like, you're sort of interrupted from a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, like you can't really deal with like a crisis at your office or like a report that's due or anything like that. Like that's just not possible.
Not really. I mean, when I first, like the first one I did was in 2005, and that one was super remote for a bunch of it. Like it was amazing what they pulled off, but intense, like you say. And some people were in RVs. There's a little bit of that, but you weren't really even in towns for 3 or 4 of the 7 days, so there wasn't even like a place you could go. And at that time, obviously, cell phones and coverage and stuff was much less. Smartphones, I don't even know if they existed in 2005.
You maybe had like email on your like flip phone, but it wasn't very good.
I don't remember how or if we checked. I don't really have a good memory for how that.
Isn't it funny that used to just be like a normal thing? You were on vacation and therefore you did not check your email?
It was just before I started into coaching and stuff like that, which has been sort of what has tied me to that being work. So it was just ahead of that. But yeah, I remember it being, that was really cool to be so far, you know, removed from even stores, right? Like you couldn't buy anything.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. To me, and I have a couple friends who have done BC bike race and a few other ones, and they just treat it like a tour. Like they have zero, you know, they ride ahead of time like they would, and then go, and it's just like BC bike race is basically, you know, around Whistler, and I think they do some North Shore and Squamish. So you're hitting like a lot of the highlights. 4
ferry rides throughout the week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's how you get anywhere in BC, basically. But
it's true.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways you can go at these, right? Whether you're going to be the most pro. Lately, they've started adding things like enduro within it, so you could just sort of do an enduro basically every single day. Mm-hmm. So it's a little more casual, and then you race down the downhills, and then there's people who just do tours, right, versus racing it.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, and BC Bike Race has a 97% finisher rate, which is pretty impressive for 600 racers to finish 7 days and, like I said, 300 something kilometers of gnarly single track. Like, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, I've never heard that.
Well, we actually also have a podcast coming out in a few weeks with the BC Bike Race director, as well as Hannah Ray Finchamp, who got 3rd in the women's field. So I'm really excited about, you know, what both of them had to say about the race. But I kind of wanted to start with this one because I think sort of the more average person who does this while working a normal job is definitely as interesting, if not more interesting, especially for our audience of people who are trying to balance doing stuff like this with normal jobs.
Sure.
So before we get into it, just a quick reminder that the Wide Angle Podium donor drive is going on right now. So if you want to support our show, shows like it helps us keep the lights on, as it were. So you can head over to wideanglepodium.com/donate. It would just be, yeah, awesome. All support is welcome, any level. You can do it for $5 a month. You can do a one-time donation. And during the donor drive, there's so much bonus content that you get. I can say it's pretty awesome because I made a fair amount of it for our show. And the stuff that you get from the other shows on our network, like CX Hairs and Slow Ride Podcast, is also pretty sweet. And like we said last week, and we'll say again at the end of the episode, if you donate and come up and find me at a cross race and show me that you donated, I will buy you a beer. Or Peter will. Whichever of us you find.
Sure. So the important thing for people is that during the donor drive, you get some extra freebies for donating that you can't get the rest of the year. You could always, come on as a subscriber, as a donor throughout anytime during the year, but there's a bunch of extra stuff. There's t-shirts and stickers, I believe a patented aero race pin.
Woo!
So these are pins that are aerodynamic, I take it.
They could have saved like 3 minutes during BC Bike Race if they
and
had
you
these.
Can sign up to do like a recurring fee like you would with like your Netflix or your iTunes, or you can also just do a lump sum as well. So that's the idea. Sort of keeps us from getting advertisers like that are annoying companies that you don't want to hear from for the sake of a 2-week drive. This is essentially what's happening.
Cool. All right. Again, that's wideanglepodium.com/donate. And without further ado, let's talk all things BC Bike Race. First of all, congrats for finishing the BC Bike Race, ladies. That's a pretty intense accomplishment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, how was it? What's your, one sentence descriptor for how the race went?
I would say it was, yeah, if you want to give it one word, it was definitely awesome, challenging, and a total blast.
Yeah, I would say it exceeded expectations in every sense that I could imagine.
Yeah, I'm actually very lucky. I just spoke yesterday to Dre, who's the promoter of the race, and he's been running it for 12 years, and we just kind of talked about some of the statistics for how many people, how many meals get served at it, like all the work that goes into it, and I'm constantly amazed because I don't think I've ever heard anyone say one bad thing about the race. Everyone from the highest level to the most in it for a chill ride kind of people seem to have a great time.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
That's what I would agree.
Okay, so you guys both work with World Bicycle Relief, and we're going to get into that in a bit. But, okay, so we're going to start with Renee. Your background is racquetball and cycling. How did you get into both of those?
Well, racquetball goes way back, so I pretty much grew up playing racquetball. Had a mom that played racquetball on a recreational level, and so I took it to a competitive level in my, probably around 12, 13, and played some pro racquetball through high school and high school and college, and that was just my main sport. It was the one sport that I excelled at, and I played that until med school took over my life, and haven't played since. So that was just phase one, I guess, of competitive sports for me.
Okay, so what turned you on to cycling? Yeah,
cycling is something I've always done for fitness. So initially road cycling. I've also been a long time bicycle commuter for work and school. So it was just always kind of a staple of my fitness. I was riding bikes, and then I didn't really start mountain biking until I moved to Austin, Texas in 2002, and mountain bike on a recreational level, did a lot of charity, road and mountain biking, and then decided in 2015 with some encouragement of some friends to start racing, and that coincided with a move to Colorado, so it felt like a natural thing to do, and so here we are, season 4, and I love it.
That's awesome. So as an OBGYN, you'll probably appreciate, I actually have a book that I wrote that's all about, it's called Saddle Sore, and it's all about kind of lady parts and bikes and stuff. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh my God, we need to talk. Do you ever find yourself giving people advice about saddle sores and stuff like that?
Well, Claire's probably laughing. I think we've both had personal experiences with some of that, but I guess the most I've gotten was when I've volunteered to ride medical for events like Ride the Rockies, and I'm, actually in a medical tent or providing some support. Then I've treated a handful of people. Some have been pretty bad.
Yeah, I remember hearing people doing like the Trans Rockies. It's not so much about the partnership during the day on the bike. It's the partnership really comes out at night when you've got like the flashlight between your teeth and you're trying to like help your friend pop his saddle sore on his butt. Like,
oh god,
oh my gosh,
yeah.
Yeah, nothing that bad. It's just like managing it,
Such a glamorous sport we're in.
I know. Actually, they have a conference. They have a conference at in Colorado Springs, usually every year. And I don't know if the U.S. Olympic Committee puts it on, but it's the medicine of cycling. And you can just imagine every kind of injury, but including dermatology. And I've always wanted to attend that. I think it would be interesting.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's on my bucket list for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then how did you, Renee, end up with World Bicycle Relief?
So my first season racing out here, I just did it on my own, and I did a charity road race in France, and I got more introduced to World Bicycle Relief because I was racing on a team against them, but I got to know what their charity was all about, meet some of the people involved, and I always thought, wow, if there's another season of this, I'd love to race for World Bicycle Relief because I love the cause. I could totally get behind this. With some of my experiences traveling and volunteering in Africa, I could immediately see the need for that. And so the next season, I decided I wanted to connect with World Bicycle Relief, see what was involved in being an ambassador or being part of their team, whether it was for Ride the Rockies or Leadville 100. And so I contacted Claire, and we met and talked and shared a little bit about our backgrounds, and it was a good fit. And so I raced for them last season and did some key events and raised a lot of money. And then this year is season 2, and I took it to a little bit of the next level and applied to be a global ambassador, which I'm doing, and started a small women's mountain bike race team to recruit some other people to race for charity along with me, and just for the extra camaraderie and fun, and it's just been great. It's really made racing so much more significant than if I was just out there trying to set a personal record,
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get into why BC Bike Race kind of matters for you two, but let's also get into Claire. So what is your athletic background? I know you've done Ironman, you were involved in crew, and you do both road and mountain bikes. So what's your athletic history look like?
Yeah, I've kind of tried my hand at a lot of sports. Like from when I was really, really little, I grew up playing soccer, and then I joined the tennis team in high school, and I wasn't really good enough at either of those sports to play in college, but when I went to college, the crew team actually accepts a ton of walk-ons. It's almost primarily walk-ons. And so I kind of decided to give my hand a shot at that. Like, I went to school, I'm 5'4", but I was really small, and I actually didn't go to be a rower. I was a coxswain. So I was the one that sits in the back of the boat and tells the rowers what to do. And my mom was a coxswain at Wisconsin as well. So she was like, you should go out and try this. It's awesome to be a part of a sports team. And I was always a really competitive person and athlete. So I went and tried out for the team, and I made it. And like, kind of to my luck, that was one of the only years that they didn't have a recruited coxswain. So somebody that had done it in high school and, was coming on scholarship. And so I quickly kind of fell into that sport and, really just enjoyed the team aspect of it and like representing the university at racing, and really enjoyed it. It was interesting. I kind of had an internal struggle for a long time because I wasn't the one doing the physical activity. I was just sitting in the back telling people what to do and how to go hard. But I found a good balance within that time of, I was a runner myself. I love, to do that on my spare time to stay fit and all of those things. And it was really, there's an Ironman in Wisconsin, which is where I went to school in Madison, and I would volunteer for it every year. And I kind of decided during my senior year of crew that I was going to do the Ironman when I graduated, because I really wanted to show all of my teammates that I was willing to push myself as hard as I was asking them to. And so I completed the Ironman the year after I graduated, and I ended up winning my age group and qualifying a spot at Kona, which is the World Championships. And that kind of led into a couple years of racing Ironman. I raced Ironman Texas, and I won my age group there again. And then I went to Kona, and I finished 9th in the world in my age group. And so I had a great time with Ironman, and it was a really good way to push myself physically. And I loved the kind of varying aspect of it, of the run, the swim, the bike, but also getting your nutrition down, mentally preparing and being able to deal with the ups and downs of the days and pushing through all of that. So that was a really good time. And I learned about World Bicycle Relief while I was racing in Kona.
Hey guys, we're just going to interrupt you for a second to talk again about the Wide Angle Podium Donor Drive. So for those of you who don't know, Wide Angle Podium is the network that our podcast is on, along with other awesome cycling-related podcasts like CX Hairs, Slow Ride Podcast, We Got to Hang Out, The Honest Bicycle, tons of other really cool ones. And the network is sort of what allows us to, keep upgrading our audio equipment, keep putting out new episodes. Hosting and all that kind of stuff is not free or cheap. So, it really takes a village to have this kind of podcast going out every single week.
Yeah, and the way I like to describe it is, we used to all pay for our cable channels, we used to all pay for all these crazy things, and, everything gets sort of cheaper, but it also gets more, specific. So you can now get the exact content. Hopefully, we're providing content, you're listening, so thank you for that. But you're getting, the content that you want. It's very specific to, the cycling you like or the sporting you like. We're not getting, really any commercials that are stupid and for, odd companies that you don't support. So
it's true. So anyway, this month we have our Wide Angle Podium Donor Drive going on. It's just going on through the end of August. And any new donors get a ton of rad bonus content. I can say it's rad because I made a lot of it.
So these are downloadable documents. There's some extra episodes with some really cool people. There's some longer added content that are from some of the episodes we have done. Mm-hmm. Can you give people any teasers on those?
Yeah, actually, we have one of my favorite people talking about nutrition, Matt Fitzgerald.
So we got some extra nutrition stuff.
So you're
going to get faster?
Yep, extra
healthier?
Sports. Yeah, and you're going to get smarter, too, because we have Simon Marshall talking about some sports psychology.
And he was really well received. He's a great guest.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then during the donor drive, you also have access to things. There's some T-shirts, there's some pins, some stickers, some really cool stuff like that. And basically, you can donate on a sort of recurring thing, like you do with your iTunes or your cable package or whatever you're paying for monthly. And that's at lots of different levels, obviously. And you can also just do a one-time sort of annual or one-time lump sum as well.
Cool. All right. Again, that's wideanglepodium.com/donate. Any and all contributions would be greatly appreciated. And if you're already a donor, thank you so much for supporting the show. And with that said, let's get back to it.
And I had always wanted to tie my racing to some type of charity work or some way to give back, because I think in so many of these sports, you invest so much time and energy into yourself. And, we're just amateur athletes. I wasn't getting paid to be out there. I was just doing it because it was fun. And so I really wanted to find a way to tie in something more meaningful. And when I found World Bicycle Relief, it was just the perfect fit. It was international work, humanitarian work, and it tied to the bicycle, which was a tool that I found was very prevalent in my life, but I also knew had such big impact for, people through mobility. So I started as a fundraiser myself while I was still racing Ironman and was fresh out of college. And for me, I didn't have a lot of money. My friends didn't have a lot of money. But this $147 was so tangible to me and like something that I could really wrap my head around, that like if I could raise a bike, I was changing a life. And so I rallied a bunch of my friends, and I ended up raising 25 bikes my first fundraising time around, and I was really proud of that. It was a way to make my racing a lot more meaningful. And then when I moved out to Colorado, a spot on the development team on World Bicycle Week opened up managing fundraising. And so that's when I really kind of got out of racing and just really poured myself into this work. And I felt like, gosh, if I can raise 25 bikes on my own, that's great. But if I can help other people and empower them to reach out to their networks and do that fundraising, then I'm going to have such a bigger reach. And so being a part of the development team at World Bicycle Week for the past 5.5 years has been super rewarding for me to see, you know, how many bikes we've distributed. When I went and raced in Kona, they had distributed 79,000 bikes, and we're now over 400,000. And to be a part of so much of that growth has just been the most rewarding thing that I've really been a part of. And so for Renee and I to be able to tie BC Bike Race, which again is a big investment of time and resources into yourself, to be able to look back and say, you know, this is the outcome. And really what I'm most proud of is, I mean, we've raised over $23,000 now. And I think that's the legacy that I'll be most proud of for this event.
How many bikes does that translate into?
Well, so we're basically funding a school, and so that includes the like the programming and the mechanics training and
cool.
all of that. So yeah, we're funding a specific school in Kenya. And so that, like, the 20,000 was kind of our goal to do that. And additional funds will continue to fund bikes. But now we've fully funded this school.
That's awesome. And I want to come back actually to just the bike thing, as you mentioned it. I think you said it was $147 per bike?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, so that's this is the Buffalo bicycles, right?
Yep, that's right.
So I love the concept of being able to measure in like the amount of bikes that you've like been able to donate. I just think that's like the coolest when you can say like, I helped donate 25 bikes. Like that's so much cooler than a dollar amount. It's so, okay, I know I changed 25 lives with these 25 bikes.
Exactly.
I just think that's like the coolest thing with World Bicycle Relief. I love that. Okay, so okay, actually, I want to come back to this. Claire, like you were saying, being that position on the crew team really kind of makes you, it almost is like you majored in sports psychology, I feel like. Like, you're perfect for this kind of thing.
That's a really good way of, such a good way of putting it. And describing what the role of the coxswain is one of the hardest things to do, because people just think we're like the cheerleader that sits in the back going like, you rah rah. But it really is, it's a very technical role of making sure that the rowers are all really in sync with each other and helping them, you know, knowing what their weaknesses are, what they need to work on, what happens when they get tired, and making sure they're staying focused, because it's such an intense race. It's only about 6 or 6.5 minutes, but they are at this like threshold where they are at, you know, the absolute max of their, you know, kind of ability. It's an odd length because it's a sprint for 6 minutes, which there's no such thing as a sprint for 6 minutes, except in crew. But like the psychology part of it is so true, because I'm the one that has to get them to make that decision to then go harder and to sprint at the end. And each person wants something different. You know, some people want you to tell them like, great work, you're doing awesome. And some people want you to scream bloody murder in their ear. And you have to find that balance, because you're basically talking to everybody at the same time through your microphone. But what I did learn is like, that really helped me become such a mentally strong athlete. Like, I know how to talk to myself during races, and I did this all the time during Ironman and during BC as well, of like, I basically cox myself through races, and I just talk to myself exactly of what I need to do and push through things. And it's been something that I think has made me successful as an athlete, because I think when you get to a certain level, like physically, everybody, you know, trains really hard. But it's that time when you're at mile 12 in a marathon, after you've already ridden 112 miles on your bike and swam 2.4 miles, that you have to decide, like, am I going to push through this pain? Because it hurts like hell. And I was able to do that because I could mentally push myself, you know, past those limits. And so that's actually probably the best description, what you just said, that anybody has ever said about coxing, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and just to drive that in a little more, and I think Claire coxed me through this race too, if you think about it. And I think that psychology, or that mental toughness and flexibility and adaptability per person applies when you're talking about a team racing anything, even if as small as a 2-person team racing 7 different stages on different days and different terrain, waking up feeling different every morning, and having to strategize as a team how you're going to come out winners at the end. Of course, we had no idea we were going to come out winners at the end going into it, but I do think that those skills paid off in our team as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So this could go to either one of you, but what made you guys decide BC Bike Race is going to be the race?
Yeah, I'll take that one because it was my idea. I think I've got more history in mountain biking than Claire, and so I'd heard about this, much like hearing about the Leadville 100. I'd heard about this BC Bike Race, this 7-day. I mean, everyone who participates in the BC Bike Race will come out raving about it. Like you said, whether they won it or whether they're in the back of the pack, they'll tell you it's the best 7 days they've had on a bike. And so I always wanted to go experience this and see what it was all about. And I had a friend I was going to race with, and she ended up injured, and I ended up looking for a new partner and deferring for a year. And this was the year, and I really didn't want to have this experience solo. I just thought it would be way more meaningful, plus more impact, fundraising for World Bicycle Relief if it was a team thing and not a solo endeavor. And Claire and I'd come to get to know each other over the year and a half prior, and we knew we were well suited in sports, in road cycling at least, and weren't sure if it would translate into the same compatibility on mountain bikes, but I knew her intensity and her competitiveness and perseverance and all that, and I thought for a 7-day race, I'll see if I can talk Claire into this. There were only a handful, very small handful of friends that I thought would be suitable as teammates, but it was my bucket list race, and I think something I figured almost anyone could get excited about if the timing was right for them. So I approached Claire and said, "You're my first choice. Please say yes."
And you got a yes.
Yeah, it came with a lot of hesitation. I'll tell you that much. I was really nervous about it, like more nervous than I've probably been about anything else I've done. And it was a lot of back and forth. And Renee, like I put a ton of time into, trying to figure out if this was the right decision for me or not. I was really worried
she left me hanging a little bit.
Yeah.
She left me hanging a little bit, and I had to send lots of encouragements. I promise this race is going to be great.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
I would feel the same way, Claire.
And it was.
Like, it's BC mountain biking. Like, that's no joke.
Exactly. Totally. And I had like never even done a mountain bike race before. Like one little 30-mile race, like 2 weeks before, and that was before I'd even committed to doing this. Like, I've tooled around on my bike with my friends, but like I just was so outside of my comfort zone. I've never raced for 7 days straight, and I felt like, gosh, I'm just not fit enough to like come back day after day. And I think my biggest thing was like I didn't want to hold Renee back. I didn't want to be like a weak link, and I knew we were very well matched, and I thought we would be good, but I just knew she had a lot more experience in the race scene, and it's a big decision, and it was really other people that encouraged me to take the leap. And if you ask my fiance, at least like the 3 weeks leading up to that event, I mean, I was so nervous. I would lay in bed at night and I would just be like, this is not a good idea. And Renee, one of the doctors on her team quit early, and so anyway, she was scrambling. They said like they had to cover all these shifts, and I was like, maybe we're gonna have to drop out. Like, if I'm lucky, maybe like we'll just have an out that I don't have to go and do this. But it's funny because after we finished the first day, it was like all of that stress just immediately came out. Like I was like, okay, we survived the day. We can survive this week together. And I think we really fell into our groove and everything changed. And I think I said multiple times throughout the week, like, I'm so glad you talked me into this. I'm so glad you talked me into this. This is so fun. And like, everything just changed. But, you know, I think it's good to be nervous before a race. It means you care. It means that, you know, it is a big undertaking. And I think those are the ones that are most rewarding, because that's what it was about Ironman for me. It's such a big undertaking, but the reward when you accomplish something that big that you've pushed your body to the limit is like, it's just awesome. It's such a great feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. We did an episode on pre-race nerves a couple months ago, and what we both kind of ended up saying was just like, if you're not nervous and like kind of freaked out about a race, you probably don't care enough about it. So those nerves are actually a positive. And I mean, how much of the nerves were from, I mean, only 15% of the people who do BC Bike Race are female. So how was that experience? Was it just super rad, or was it kind of a boys club? And did you camp? And also, was it just like men's camp, women's camp? How did this work?
It kind of becomes one big family, and honestly, the men were amazing. And in fact, I would even say, beyond my expectations, they were cheering Claire and I on as a team and saying, go get them. If they knew the other team was ahead of us, or if they knew the other team was behind us, they would be like, they're on your tail, go harder. Or, you know, they were very, very friendly, even to the point of sometimes letting us pass if they knew it was a tight race that day. And so I think they were super cool. And yeah, it's one big village. It's hundreds of tents spread around. And so, you know, you're eating and sleeping and racing with these 630 people for 7 days. And you get to know a lot of people, especially the people who are day after day kind of in your pack at the same pace. You really do get to know each other. You know who excels on the climbs and who excels on the downhills. But I think that was one of the things that did completely exceed my expectations, is just how totally cool everyone was out there on some really technical single track trails where you do have to navigate not just rocks and roots, but each other, and you're all trying to have a good finish time. So I thought the crowd was just super cool. I think Claire would agree.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. Like it was so much fun. And my biggest fear about mountain biking has always been that I'll get on the single track and I'll just have guys breathing down my neck wanting to pass. And I didn't feel like that at all. They were so supportive. They were cheering. You know, they knew the close competition we were in with the second place team. And, you know, they would roll into aid stations and be like, you guys got this. Like, you know, it looks like they're not as strong today. Like, take them. You know, like they were a part of the competition too, which made it really fun. And just overall really supportive. And even on a couple of the descents, like if I heard someone behind me, I'd pull over and let them by. And then, you know, at the end, they were like, you didn't need to do that. Like, you were totally shredding. And I was like, well, I was not shredding. But, you know, I appreciate that. But they were awesome. I didn't have a single negative experience with anybody there, volunteer, other athlete, anybody. It was such an awesome group of people.
That's awesome. And it sounds like...
I would...
Go ahead, Renee. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, you know, the male-female ratios, I don't know. I think we've kind of come to sort of expect that with mountain biking. There's just not as many women out there, but the women that are there are good. And I think there was such great camaraderie around the women, especially. Like, you know, there's less than 100 women out there, and they're all great athletes. And we had so much fun. You know, you're showering and you're camping and you're eating with them, but everyone we competed with and against was just really well-spirited. And, I mean, we're exchanging phone numbers and emails and social medias, and now they're like, we got an expanding circle of friends. So it was, and it was fun just to talk to them and find out where else they'd raced around the world, because it was such an international field. That was one of the coolest things. You're listening to people pass on the trails or talk to their teammate in different languages. And just to hear that and to see the different flags on the race numbers on people's backs and say, oh, I don't know that flag. What country is that? And, you know, it was just a really unique experience at the international level.
I love that. Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to Hannah Ray Finchamp, who finished, I think, third in the overall women's, and she was saying she actually was sharing a tent with the girl who beat her for second. And I mean, it was pretty down to the wire with those two. And she's like, yeah, by the end we were like best friends. It didn't even occur to us that we were really like competing against each other, even though we were racing each other every day. It's like, I love that so much.
Yeah.
That's great.
And that's kind of how we were with the second place team. Like, we would cheer for each other, and like they'd pass us and we'd, tell them good job, and we'd pass them and they'd say the same. Like, we'd have beers after the race together. Like, we really became friends, and like you go out and you ride hard, but at the end of the day, like ultimately we're all out there just having fun, and so it, we had a very similar experience to that too.
I love that. So was it a tight race for you guys the whole week, or when did you like cinch the victory?
It actually was quite tight. We took the first 2 stages and had a pretty nice lead. And the first stage was quite technical, and second stage as well. And then third and fourth days ended up being real cross-country days. And these gals from Spain are great climbers. And we knew that because we saw them on the climb the first 2 days too. But they're really strong on the climb. And the irony is, Claire and I went out there thinking we were going to be the cross-country girls, excel on the climbing because we come from high elevation and we train a lot on climbs. And we thought we might be weaker on the technical riding and descents because we don't really have a lot of that type of terrain, different surface and not as much roots and so forth. But as it turned out, so they took stage 3 and 4, and on day 4 we had to give up the yellow leaders jersey. So made us sweat, and they kept the yellow jersey for 2 days, and then we really rallied hard to get it back with stages 6 and 7. But even going into stage 7, Claire, you might correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we just had like a 3 to 5 minute lead on them going into the final
3
stage.
minutes.
So that was 3 minutes, yeah. So tons of 3 minutes when you consider we've raced 20 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So already going into day 4, to have only a 3 minute lead, that's one flat tire. That anything could happen and reverse that. So, we went hard on day 7, and we had a nice margin at the end. It was a really great stage for us, and I think we were just pumped to finish this event. And so we've just put it all out there. We're like, okay, tomorrow we're not riding, so let's just go. And it was a long final stage, but so I would say that the race would not have been what it was without that. The intensity of the back and forth with them, it certainly added another element of pressure and fun and competition that we wouldn't have had if there was a lot of margin between the other riders. So I thought it was super cool.
That is awesome, because I think a lot of stage races, pretty quickly you end up with these huge time gaps, especially when you're in a tiny field. Like when they're just,
Right.
when there's under 100 women racing, like I'm sure that from the top woman to the last woman, there were probably, a few hours separating them by the end.
Oh, huge. Yeah, huge.
So to have that kind of actual back and forth for the whole time does add such an exciting level that doesn't always happen.
Right. Yeah, and 3 minutes, it's one thing if you're doing a 10K running race that's going to, people come in within seconds, but the last stage was 35 miles and I think 5,500 feet of climbing. So 3 minutes is negligible, right?
Yeah.
That's nothing. And so it that really added to the kind of excitement for so many people. Again, going back to the awesome camaraderie with the other racers, they were excited to see what was going to happen. And so it was really fun to kind of have that competition again with people that we felt like we had become friends with, and it was a really positive competition overall.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so from
I've said it's by far the most fun I've ever had racing before.
Nice.
And competing before.
Wow.
I
love it.
I love it. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you to go negative on it. What was the hardest part of the whole week for you guys?
Waking up in the morning. I'm not a morning person, and the wake up was 6 a.m.
Oh.
Although we started going to bed pretty early, so that helped. But I actually thought day 2 or 3 3, I think, was the hardest day to get up because I think, we had raced 2 days, and I think my body was still kind of adjusting to what we were trying to do. I actually felt the strongest days 5, 6, and 7. Like, I felt strong climbing. I felt good descending. And so I almost felt that throughout the week I got better. But I think those middle days, I was tired. My legs felt heavy. My upper body was, had taken, a brunt of the, descending and stuff. So I think getting used to that amount of racing just took a little bit of time for me.
Yeah, I would agree on the feeling stronger towards the end. I think for me, the hardest thing was keeping up with Claire on the climbs. I mean, she's really a strong climber. And I felt like, man, if she's giving it 80%, I probably have to match that with my 90%. I was feeling a little bit old out there, and I'm 47, so I think, it was a bit challenging to keep up with with Claire, but I think I thought, well, if I get behind on the climbs, I'll just try to catch up when we get into the single track and the technical stuff. But Claire got progressively stronger on all the new terrain that we were riding each week. So I really had to give it all every day. And I kept waiting for a day that I could kind of coast or cruise a little, and it just didn't come. So, even to the point where we got to the last couple of days and we weren't stopping at aid stations even for quick, grab a goo or, grab water. We were skipping aid stations and just trying to really push hard. And so I think it was just intense. And I feel like I've been in a 2-week-long recovery. I had a race this morning and I felt like I had no juice.
Ooh.
And I was like, I think it's still left over from leaving it all in BC.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you guys handle the recovery and fueling and stuff like that? So kind of walk me through what, okay, so you wake up. Walk me through what the day looks like in one of these races.
I actually found it very, it's very routine. Like, they wake you up at a certain time and you have your certain time that your group is scheduled for breakfast, and then you race at a certain time and you finish, and there's, food waiting at the finish line. And then again, you have dinner time scheduled at a certain time, and then you go to bed. It was pretty nice. I think that helped with a lot of it. I think the biggest thing for me for recovery is eating plenty of food and healthy. And Renee can attest, I would eat 3 plates of food every night. I was hungry all week long, no matter how much I ate. But I think eating healthy food and getting plenty of rest. I mean, we ended up getting about at least 8 hours of sleep every night because you didn't really have a ton of other things to do except go to bed. So that was pretty good. And I would say that's a huge part of the recovery. I joked, a lot of people did yoga at night, and I joked oh no, I don't want to train up, do something I haven't ever done before. So I just sit around and watch everybody do yoga. But I think the, kind of the stretching, the nutrition, and the rest is the best thing you can do. I don't know, Renee, what else you think?
Yeah, I agree. I joked that it felt like Groundhog Day because every day it was the same repetition. And by day 4, it's just kind of weird. Aren't we back in the same place again? I've only done 3-day stage races up until this. So by day 4, I was kind of wow, we're doing this again. Okay. But I think napping when you can. We had 4 ferry rides over the course of the week. Claire was better than I was at taking naps on the ferries, but I think just resting, getting your feet up, and I think hydrating and then getting to bed early. I think those were all keys. I think we were it was very, very routine. I think we had it down.
Yeah, I think the mistake I've made in any time I was in any kind of race like that, and I've never done the 7-day, but I've been at 7-day stage races as media, and I was always I'd go out and do part of the course or whatever just to see what it was like, but then I'd come back and I'd be working and on my computer doing stuff, so I was completely tanked, and I'm looking at everyone else, I was oh, they're not doing how are they not doing anything? And it's finally clicking with me no, you're actually, if you did it right, you're too tired to do anything other than refuel and just be done for the day. Because I would worry about getting bored. But and with Hannah, I was like, did you bring a book or like several books? I mean, you have so much time in the afternoon. She's like, did not have energy to do anything. Are you crazy?
And some people were, I mean, the other thing too is when we had a chance, we got our legs in the water. So when we were by the ocean or the lake, we were, try to dip our legs and get a little, that helps with recovery too. We didn't have a lot of rivers nearby. Ironically, we were on the coast, but we weren't always camping close by where we could do that. And there were a lot of people who did bring books and were hanging around. I think I got on the rollers and did a lot of stretching and I actually did a couple of massages. They had some great therapists out there, and all that helped. We kind of joked because we didn't bring books with us, either of us, because I knew it was going to be a bit of a busy schedule. But the other thing too is we wanted to use a lot of our downtime for fundraising and sharing the work of World Bicycle Relief. So we did a lot of socializing in the downtime, meeting everyone there, hearing their story, telling them what our goal was about the school in Kenya, and making friends. And I don't regret any of that. That was super time well spent, and it really helped us hit our goal.
That's awesome. I feel like races like this, in my head, I'm like very intimidated by them, but thinking about them and talking to people who've done them, it does seem like they're this awesome mental, like almost break/reset, because all you can do for the week is really be in the moment. You can't really, like, if your head is somewhere else, like if you're thinking about, work or freaking out about something else, like you're not going to have a good race. So, but like when you're racing, you're in it, right? So did you guys come back feeling mentally refreshed, or were you just totally cracked?
We're a bit of both. We both came back to
a little bit of both.
I mean, the price you pay when you take.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, let me go, Claire. The price you pay when you have to take that kind of time off of work or travel and so forth is, for me, coming back to a 72-hour work week. And Claire immediately jumped on a flight to go to Vermont to do some work-related things. So there really wasn't much recovery on the other side. And I think you've probably had this experience, but there's also this kind of letdown, like you're on such a high, especially when, even more so when you're winning, but even if we hadn't been winning, it's such a high. It's like, they call it adult summer camp, and it's like that. And when you go home, you're kind of you're sort of sad to return to your world, even though you're excited to share about your adventures. It's like, it's sad when it's finally over.
It's funny, so many people say that about after they get married as well. Like after the wedding, there's kind of like this, oh God, what now? Like the day is over. I feel like that's
there's your warning, Claire.
Yeah, exactly.
Not if you do it right, but I have heard that's a thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the medical people talked to us about post-race depression. I think they called it, or post-race blues maybe, or something, where it really does feel like that a little bit of, especially leading into the event. Your focus is training. You've got this very specific, purpose to get ready, and you do it, and then all of a sudden it's over, and you kind of almost don't know what to do with yourself. And so, I can see a little bit of that. And I think the same thing, like you said, with wedding is right? You plan for so long, you have your big day and it's amazing. And then all of a sudden, it's just all over.
Yeah.
But it feels a little bit like that. I think it was good to jump, right into some things, and kind of be able to kind of refocus our energies in other areas besides just riding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've experienced that many times on mission trips where I go away to Africa for a month to work at the hospital to volunteer, or to Honduras for a couple of weeks, and always on return it's that kind of sad, empty feeling of you've just had this profound experience, and you can't take all your friends with you on these trips. You can tell them about it, but it'll just barely scratch the surface of what happened in your heart and body and soul, and you feel a little changed on the other side of a big race or an important event. And, you kind of have to prep yourself for that. I think it's good to talk it out and expect it to happen. It's kind of it can mess with your mind for sure. And you wonder why I'm so happy, but why do I feel let down? But I think that's the common phenomenon.
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys did this as a team. Do you have any tips for people that would be thinking about doing some kind of team event? Because I feel like it is I think it's so much harder personally than racing solo. I mean, it's got so many great things about it, but I do believe it is a bigger challenge.
Agree.
Yeah.
Claire, you got any?
I think it is. Yeah, I mean, I think it in some ways is a bigger challenge in that, their mechanical is your mechanical, and your bad day is their bad day. But at the same time, also, like, the victories are so much sweeter because you're sharing them with someone. My biggest suggestion is make sure you're compatible with that person. We met a lot of people along the way. Like, one guy was like, yeah, my partner didn't train for this, and I'm not waiting for him. And we were like, oh, gosh, like, that was just right. So I think that, we had a great time because we were compatible. So we rode, the majority of the race really within eyesight almost of each other. So that was really cool. And then it goes back to it. Like, I think that it also can be really beneficial because even if, like, there was a day that I wasn't feeling super strong and Renee was ahead of me, and I was like, okay, I got to do this for Renee. I'm just going to push myself hard. And so it almost took the pressure off of just thinking about, my woes and, like, really basing it on our team aspect and focusing in on that. And that helped keep me really positive throughout the week of, like, wanting to, do the best for our team versus just personally. So I think the team part, it just was so cool to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I would agree with the tip of compatibility. I think in a race where you can either go solo or go team, I think unless you have someone you're super compatible with or you've laid out all your expectations and you're just on the same page about what to expect going into it, I think it's better to race solo. But I think the victory and the experience is more sweet shared, and it does add another element. But I think personality-wise and fitness-wise and even the degree to which you want to compete really need to line up well. And I really feel like there's not anyone else that I know of that I could have lined those up better with than Claire for this season. And so it was, there wasn't a single disappointment in deciding to do it as a team and choosing Claire. And that's not just because we won. I just think, I think we really did have kind of the same goals and hopes and flexibilities. I think you have to be flexible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's what I would suggest.
No, I think that's great.
And train together when you can, as much as you can.
Yeah, I think coming back to those two guys that you mentioned, right? Like, they clearly hadn't communicated, like, here's what my training plan looks like. Here's what I'm doing leading up to this. Like, are we on the same wavelength here or no? Like, so I think that's so important. Poor guys.
It's funny, I raced this morning. I'm in Leadville back at home, and we have a stage race this weekend, which is our 3-day stage race. And Claire, two of the friends we made at the BC bike race, Eric and Michael, were there racing, and it was just so fun to look over and see. We met them. They're from Colorado, but we met them in BC and had never met them before. And we're similarly paced, but they're just buddies that ride together now and then, and they raced it as a team. And today this wasn't a team race today, so they're racing separate. But it was just so fun, just to see them, and I kind of had a little flashbacks of that experience. But yeah, people choose all kinds of partners. There were people racing with their brother or sister or friend from high school in another state, and many of them had not had the advantage we had. We thought we didn't have enough time to train together, but the little bit that we did, and we were really dedicated to trying to make our schedules work, even if it meant we rode at 6 a.m. Before we both went to work. Because I travel around, I'm not always in Colorado Springs, so, and neither is Claire. So, but I think that little bit of just working to train together as much as we could was very helpful, and it was actually sufficient. We worried that it wasn't, but it was actually just fine.
Nice. All right, and then I mean, before we go, let's talk World Bicycle Relief. Clara, this is probably, since you're the development manager and fundraiser extraordinaire, give everybody kind of the, not sales pitch, give everyone the why the heck they desperately need to donate to World Bicycle Relief and what you guys are all about.
Yeah, and I mean, that's nice. Renee is just as equally as good of a spokesperson as I am. So, you know, again, it was awesome to be out there together at the race and be able to share. I mean, for me, World Bicycle Relief has such a direct impact immediately in an individual's life. And it's what originally brought me to the organization, and it's what continues to drive me today. I think a bicycle is a tool for an individual to empower themselves, and for a student, it just immediately provides a brighter future by allowing that student to stay in school. And I think the impact is so profound. So for $147, which to many of us as athletes, right, like that's less than what our helmet costs. Mm-hmm. You know, let alone our shoes, our sunglasses, and our bike, and new tires, and all of those things. Like, it's such an easy thing to wrap your head around, and it's a tool that really drives an individual's life forward. And I continue to be so inspired by the stories of lives changed and, you know, the opportunities that are opened up because of a bicycle. And it's just, you know, 400,000 bikes have been distributed, and the need is still out there. So I'm excited to hit the 500,000 mark, the 1 million mark, and even beyond, and continue to, you know, give to someone else this tool that has also been so important in my life. It's an incredible opportunity, I think, and so easy to be involved in.
Mm-hmm. And it's so important. I mean, what you guys do, not just with getting bikes to people, but specifically getting bikes to women. I mean, some of them, like plenty of them go to men, but the girls and women who get these bikes, like their lives are completely changed. And it's just so amazing to me reading some of those stories.
It really is, and I think you make a good point about the women. You know, we really do focus about 70% on girls and women, and, you know, we're not necessarily going in and saying, oh, the work should be divided equally amongst boys and girls. Like, that's not our position, you know, and that's not our spot to go in and say that. What we do is we try and empower those girls, and that's amazing. And I think this year especially, the UN had their first World Bicycle Day, recognizing that the bike is a key tool to achieving a lot of goals that are worldwide. And the UN has set these sustainable development goals, and there's 17 of them, and 9 of the 17 can be improved by having a bicycle. Eradicating poverty, being able to access education, all of these things, a bicycle plays a key component. So, you know, it's really exciting to think about the bike as a tool being recognized at such a high level that it is important in a lot of these goals that we have, you know, on a global basis. So the options are just endless, and I think mobility is such a key part, especially in those areas of the world that we work where distance is so vast.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And how can people find out more about World Bicycle Relief? What are all the web links and whatnot that we need?
The easiest one is probably worldbicyclerelief.org. That will take you to our main landing page, and people can learn about, you know, our mission statement, about stories, read our blog. We've got ways to get involved. We have events to be involved in. So worldbicyclerelief.org is definitely the main landing page. We do have a Facebook, you know, site, World Bicycle Relief, and on Twitter we're at Power of Bicycles. On Instagram we're at World Bicycle Relief. So lots of different ways to follow us in social media and learn more on the website, where we've got our impact reports and all of those statements as well.
Nice. And then we'll also have a link in the show notes to the page that you two have specifically for BC Bike Race, if anyone wants to find out more about that or jump into that donation particularly.
Excellent. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you two so much, and congrats on an awesome race. That's so rad.
Thank you so much.
You.
It's been great chatting.
Hey guys, before you take off, we just wanted to jump on here and talk a little bit about the Wide Angle Podium donor drive that's going on this August. So Wide Angle Podium is a member-supported network. They have tons of awesome shows, in addition to us, obviously. We have the Slow Ride podcast, there's Crosshairs, so many other really cool cycling-specific podcasts. I think we might be the only non-cycling-specific one on the network, so it's pretty rad that they let us, hang out with them.
Yeah, it's definitely a conglomerate.
That makes it sound like they're in some kind of like skyscraper building and
no, in fact it's quite different. It's all just regular people who are talking and trying to get people like Katie Compton, or we just had Chris McDougall today that you just listened to, and it's bringing this content that hopefully is very near and dear to your heart, whether you're a cyclist or something like that. It's very specific, right? And that's this day and age. We're not paying NBC for our cable package. I mean, you've cut the cord. You're not paying for cable anymore. Who does that? So it's really now, you pay maybe Apple for your $10 Apple Music, and then
Netflix?
Maybe you're Netflixing and chilling. I don't know what you choose to do with your own time, but that would be an option. And then, maybe some YouTube in there. And then you got your Wide Angle Podium, right? So you're getting your podcast, and it's a very specific show, right? There's no more channel surfing. You know that these, five different shows maybe you listen to as a cyclist, or, maybe you listen to us for sort of this all-around stuff, and then maybe you have like another show that you listen to that's about something else, like dogs or something. But slowly our show is merging into a dog show.
I was going to say. Anyway, though, if you end up supporting Wide Angle Podium, which you can do if you go to wideanglepodium.com/donate, you not only get to help out shows like ours, you also get some sick bonus content. We actually put a lot of time this summer into recording a couple of bonus episodes with some pretty high-level people about some pretty cool topics. We put together a couple handouts and PDFs as well, so you get bonus content from us as well as from all of the other podcasts. So really
it should be a lot,
stuff.
right? Like
yeah.
we put in 3 or something. Is that what it was?
This year we have 3 episodes.
But I imagine all the older stuff is in there too, and there was some really good stuff from last year and the year before too.
Yep, and yeah, like I said, a couple new handouts with some of the stuff that we talk about on the show, kind of put into here's like an easy way to put this stuff into practice. So yeah, it's really great if you can help support us and the network. We will be forever grateful. You will be our best friends. Cross is coming, so you're probably going to see us at some races. So how great would it be to get to come up and be like, hey, I support your show. I would give you some stickers then, probably some Shred Girls swag if you.
I was wondering what you were going to offer on top. I'm like, hey, be careful. What if this goes really well?
I'll buy you lunch if you're like one of the highest donors.
Beers for everyone. Molly Herford.
You know what? If you support the show with over $20 a month, I will buy you a beer at the next cross race.
I mean, I think if there's
no problem.
I think at any
level,
they still have to find you, right? So what are the chances that this is going to backfire?
I feel like at Gloucester, I'm going to lose a lot of money.
Yeah, but how much does a beer actually cost? I mean,
at Gloucester,
if someone gives to you and you give back, and then you have a beer, I feel like that was like meant to happen. I will spend on that beer. That's it. I'm offering the beer now.
Okay, there we go. If you donate, screenshot the email that says you're donating, find one of us at a cross race, and we will buy you a beer.
You don't think we can do this unless we'll just trust them?
No, I want a screenshot.
Oh, and they're gonna have to bring a piece of paper too?
No, just their phone.
Oh,
screenshot.
Yeah,
of the email.
I guess you can do that now. You've cut the cord. You got it in the cloud.
Come on, I'm just saying. All right, do that. We'll buy you a beer. You'll make our day. Anyway, so wideanglepodium.com.
Bonus content. We got bonus content.
All right.
I'm really wondering. I want to know what the bonus content is for like the crosshairs, and they probably have some really good stuff. Because this last episode they just did, we talked about that last show. I thought that was like one of the best things I've ever listened to.
Well, now you're just giving it away for free.
No. This is just the show they did. But they had Peter.
They didn't.
I made up Peter Sagan. That was just hype. But I mean, obviously they have Peter Sagan as the bonus content. I mean,
maybe. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not promising that. That's not my show. But who did they have on that was amazing and I was excited about?
They had Matthew Vanderpool.
I mean, that's just like Peter Sagan.
Okay.
Although they also developed hype, I think, around the fact that Peter Sagan doesn't know who Vanderpool is or something.
You're getting really into the weeds here, dear.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Filibuster?
wideanglepodium.com/donate. Do it and we'll buy you a beer. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Thanks so much for tuning into the Consummate Athlete podcast. You can check out my stuff over at theoutdooredit.com or by following me on Instagram and Twitter at Molly J. Herford. And you can check out Peter's coaching, training plans, blogs, all that fun stuff over at smartathlete.ca or by following him on Twitter and Instagram at Peter Glassford. And if you want to support this show and other awesome podcasts, please check out wideanglepodium.com for show info, other podcasts, bonus content, and to become a donating member so you can get all of that rad behind the scenes content and help keep shows like this on the air. And lastly, if you're enjoying this podcast and all the information that we're bringing to you every single week, do us a solid and pop into iTunes to leave us a rating and review. It takes you about 2 seconds. You can do it on your computer, you can do it on your phone, and it really helps us out. Thanks so much, and we will see you next week.